If you're following along in our Bible reading plan, today's Old Testament portion was Exodus chapter 8. Now, Exodus 8 sits in the middle of the story of God bringing various plagues upon Egypt because of Pharaoh's stubbornness in not letting his people go from slavery. Plagues 2, 3, and 4 are contained in chapter 8. Now, on two of the occasions in this chapter, after the plague comes on the land, there's this exchange between Moses and Pharaoh that takes place. And in both exchanges, Pharaoh asks Moses to pray for him. He wants Moses to ask God to reverse the plague. As part of that ask, he also, on both occasions, agrees that if Moses prays for him and God reverses the plague, he'll let God's people go and offer sacrifices. Well, both times Moses does pray for Pharaoh. Both times God does end the plague, and both times Pharaoh reneges on his commitment and refuses to let God's people go and offer sacrifices like he said he would. Now, if we peek ahead to chapter 9, the same thing happens. A plague. A promise by Pharaoh to let God's people go and sacrifice if Moses will pray to God on his behalf. Moses prays, the plague ends, and Pharaoh changes his mind. Now, I don't know about you, but maybe I would have been persuaded to pray for Pharaoh the first time. By the second time, I probably would have been far less inclined. And by the third time, no way, I'm out. I'm not as foolish as Moses. I would have known by then that my praying and God's answering wasn't going to make any difference in regards to Pharaoh's response. But here's the thing. If we look closely at that third instance, we realize that Moses wasn't being gullible. He as much as says to Pharaoh, fine, I'll pray for you, the plague will stop, but I know you won't change your mind. I know it won't change anything between you and your attitude towards my people. Moses saw right through Pharaoh, but he prayed for him anyways. And I'm reminded of Jesus' words in Luke 6. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. And Jesus doesn't qualify any of that by saying, hey, do this when it works in your favor, or pray this way when there's something you can get out of it. And I wonder how often our praying for our enemies actually is that. I pray for them because I want them to stop treating me badly. Or I pray for them because I don't want them to bother me anymore. Or some other thing that I stand to gain, that I stand to get out of it. But what if praying for my enemies is just that? Praying for them, not for me. Praying God's blessing on them. Praying for God's goodness in their lives. Praying that God would help them in the challenging circumstances they find themselves in, even if it seems to us that it's their own doing. Moses prayed for Pharaoh. He prayed for the plagues to stop, even when he was totally convinced there was nothing in it for him. And I think that, in some way, reflects what Jesus was getting at. Using Jesus' terminology, who might fall under the category of an enemy in your life? Who is that person you can't stand? Or who's that person who makes life extra challenging for you? Or maybe just, who's that person who flat out seems to be doing whatever they can to make you miserable? Let me challenge you to take a moment and just pray for them today. And this time, don't pray for them to change. Don't pray for them to stop bothering you, though all those things might very well need to happen. But today, just take time to pray blessing over them. Pray goodness into their lives. Pray for their benefit instead of yours. Why don't you give that a try today?